Hey guys, in today's video we're going to take a little bit of a departure from my usual power station solar type content. We're going to talk about an e-bike. This is the new M20 from a company called ENGWE. And I've reviewed a couple of other e-bikes on the channel before. I'll put a link to the most recent one up here if you want to go check that out. But this M20 is a very different style, as you can see. It's got a fixed seat. It's got more of an electric motorcycle kind of a feel, like a small, like an electric mini bike maybe. So we're going to take a detailed look at this thing and find out what it's all about and bring you along for the ride. But let's talk about how it arrives. So the M20 arrives about 80% pre-assembled. I think they say 90%, but it sure felt like more like 80% to me. But basically you just need to remove it from the box. You attach the handlebars, the front wheel, fenders, the headlights, and the pedals, and you're ready to ride. So ENGWE does actually include a small toolkit that technically has everything you need for assembly, but if you have access to full-size wrenches and screwdrivers, you'll probably find it a bit easier to go through the assembly with those instead of the smaller ones that they provide in the kit. In all, it took me, I would say, just under an hour to complete the assembly. But let's do a quick rundown on the key specs, and then we'll get it out on the road and see how it actually performs. So this M20 does have 20-inch by 4-inch fat tires, as you can see, and it's available in both a single battery and a dual battery option, where the dual battery would sit up here, and this is the single battery option, which comes with the little saddlebag here for storage. Now, the single battery option takes about 5 hours with the included AC adapter to fully charge from 0 to 100%. Now, according to ENGWE's published specs, it has a range on throttle only of about 22 miles. But if you're willing to do some of the pedaling, you can get well over 47 miles. So we're going to actually test range under average use conditions, and a little later in the video you'll see what the actual range turns out to be. Now, this does have a 750 watt rear hub drive motor as opposed to a mid drive, and you may see 1,000 watts published in a couple of listings. That's referring to the peak power draw, not the typical continuous sustained power draw, which is 750 watts. The bike is rated to handle up to 10-degree inclines, and the maximum published speed is 25 miles an hour, but that's probably only possible if you're a pretty lightweight rider, somebody in that 100 to maybe 110 pound range. I weigh just upwards of 200 pounds. I found this to be locked in pretty steady, consistently at 20 miles an hour on the max, which makes it clearly a Class 2 e-bike. And by the way, it does not come with a Class 2 indicator, and a lot of states do require that now. I'll put a link below to where I bought these little Class 2 stickers on Amazon. They're super cheap, but something that many municipalities actually require now. It does have a front and rear adjustable suspension. It's got front and rear mechanical disc brakes. It's got a 7-speed derailleur with a Shimano shifter. And as you can see, it's got a fixed saddle configuration. That's something that's an important thing that you need to be aware of. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. It does have dual front LED headlights, and it's got a brake actuated rear tail brake light. Now, this is a fairly heavy bike. This is 75 pounds with this heavy duty aluminum welded frame. It supports riders up to 330 pounds, and it's available in 3 different colors. You can get this in green, you can get it in white, or you can get it in black like this one here. The M20 does come with a standard 1-year warranty, and it is currently CE certified in terms of its electrical safety certifications. It's got the CE certification, and the UL certification is ongoing right now and pending, but it's expected to have UL certification as well here very shortly. Now, from a pricing standpoint, the list price on this is $12.99 on Amazon US. But there is currently a $180 off coupon on it that you can select, and I think ENGWE is going to give me a discount code in a day or two. So check the description below and see if there's an additional discount code for that, if in fact you're looking at maybe picking one of these up. All right, enough talk. Let's get this thing loaded up and out on the trail, and we'll find out how it performs. All right, I've got both the ENGWE M20 and the Highboy P6 mounted on the Hollywood bike rack here. And I really do like this Hollywood bike rack. These bikes are much heavier than non-e-bikes. So these things run around 65 pounds each, and that will quickly exceed the weight capacity of a standard 2-bike bike rack. So in this case, this particular Hollywood rack is designed for e-bikes, and it can handle up to 75 pounds each, I believe. I'll correct that here if I need to. But the other thing is that because these e-bikes weigh so much, having that little ramp that you can attach down here to either side and just roll the bike up onto the rack is super handy. All right, so my wife and I are going to take these 2 bikes out on the bike trail, and we're going to kind of see how they compare. All right, so initial impressions. What do you like about it so far, just sitting on it?
Well, so far I like that I'm not like this with my tippy toes trying to hold it up.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I have a little bit more control, especially since I haven't ridden a bike really a whole lot since middle school.
Yeah.
So
you can put your feet down while you're still seated.
yeah.
That's handy.
So I feel a little bit more in control.
How about the like the wrist orientation there?
Yeah, this feels good. Before I was out like this, I was reaching out too far.
On that other bike?
It was a little bit more comfortable for me. So this is better because it's closer.
All right.
And I super like this thing to put my phone in.
Yep, that's handy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get it out on the trail.
All right.
Wow, that's a great heron. All right, so that was about 20 miles or so. I don't have the exact number, but I did, yeah, just about 20 miles. Well, so what do you think now that you've got 20 miles under your belt on this M20?
I love this bike. I'm really excited about doing it more often now.
Excellent.
Yeah, I felt more in control of everything, and I just, it's really comfortable.
All right, we'll have to do some more. I'm going to take this thing out separately and kind of get a feel for it on my own, and I'll report back. All right, I've got the M20 back out. I'm by myself now, and I'm gonna kind of get a feel for this bike from my perspective, see how the gearing works with respect to the speed, how the modes work on this particular bike, kind of all the things that you might want to know about an e-bike. Now, I have not actually recharged this battery since you last saw me when I took my wife out with this. So I purposely kind of wanted to get a feel for how many miles we could put on this thing. We put, I think, a little over 18, almost 20 miles on this bike in the last few clips that you saw. And like I said, I've not recharged it, so I want to get a sense for, can I get another 18 miles out of this or not on that one charge? We'll find out. All right, one thing I wanted to point out real quick here, you can see we are still at kind of that one block down where we were when we left off last, and we're at 19.8 miles. I also wanted to point out that the battery has its own little switch for power. So this is the charge port, the power switch. So you do have to turn this on, and then it's got a type A, a USB type A port here. So you could actually put a little USB cable from here into this little saddlebag here, and you could charge your phone off of this battery while you're biking. So kind of cool that they included a USB port. All right, enough talk. Let's get this thing on the trail.
Begin workout.
What I'm definitely noticing is that this is very similar to the first e-bike that I reviewed, in that the modes actually limit your top speed. So on the Highboy control module, the modes will determine the amount of assist, which they also do on this bike. But if I use just throttle only, you can see on mode 2, I'm topping out at about 13 miles an hour on relatively level ground. And if I were to just keep the throttle down, so 14 miles an hour, start bumping the mode up, I immediately start accelerating. So let's just see if I get to mode 5 what my top speed is. So 20 miles an hour, that's a class 2. But yeah, so the mode level definitely affects how much assist you're going to get, but it also affects your top speed. If you want top speed, you're going to want to keep this thing in mode 5. Now I will say, having this shorter seat without the ability to raise it up, you do notice that. I mean, you're not going to get the leverage out of your pedaling that you would if, like with a regular road bike, if you could raise the seat up. But it's not as uncomfortable as I imagined it would be. So this feels a lot more like an electric motocross bike than, you know, just a regular e-bike. I also like the fact I can definitely tell the rear suspension working, and so when I go over bumps and things like that, it's definitely an improvement over not having a rear suspension, I have to say. That's a noticeable benefit. I'm going to dial this down because I don't want to go through the battery too quickly, but I want to be realistic about it. Putting it in mode 2, I do have to pedal a bit, but it is an assisted pedal. So while I'm getting a little bit of a workout, I could choose how much of a workout. All right, now one of the common things I like to do, because if you keep the gear all the way in 7th gear, it's very hard to start out pedaling. So it's nice to just start with a throttle, use a, what I call throttle start. So you just give it a little bit of throttle and it starts to take off on you, and then you can pedal. And if you happen to have it all the way in top gear, even though it's a slower pedal, you have the motor assist to kind of help you along. So it's very handy, and I think you quickly find yourself just keeping this in top gear. So the question is, if I keep this in 7th gear, is that 7th gear slow enough that I can run at top speed and still be able to pedal without looking like a crazy person? So let me find out. Let me go ahead and put this up to mode 5 and we'll see if I can pedal at top speed. All right, yeah. That's not bad. It's a bit of a quick pedal, but it's not problematic. I think one more gear would have been nice, or for it to be geared slightly differently. But it's definitely manageable. You can also override the pedal assist at any point. So if I'm just getting a light assist, even though I'm in mode 5 here, and I back it off a little, I can always hit the throttle and the assist comes in nice. Yeah, so no real complaints here. Yeah, my personal preference is a higher seat. My wife's personal preference is to be able to put her feet down, and she's happy to have a lower seat in order to be able to do that. And this bike definitely gives her that. She actually likes the saddle on this. I like my Cloud 9 seat a little bit better, just because I'm a little bit bigger. But it's not bad. It definitely has a motorcycle type feel to it. So I do feel like shifting is nice and smooth, as you would expect from a Shimano gear shift. So obviously mode 0, which is what it comes up in, is no assist at all. It's basically a very heavy bike to pedal, but it's certainly manageable. Mode 1, if I use the throttle on mode 1, you can see that I top out at 11 miles an hour. If I bump that to mode 2, $13 miles an hour. And for frame of reference, I weigh just about 200 pounds even. And we are on pretty level ground, so this is a pretty fair test. And if I go to mode 3, I'm just keeping the throttle all the way down. I add another 3 miles an hour to 16. All right, let's go to mode 4. We get another 2 miles an hour to 18. And if you weigh something like 150 pounds, you might do a little better than this. You'll certainly get a little more range. And going to mode 5 will get me up to 20 miles an hour, which is top speed for a class 2 e-bike. All right, one thing I find kind of interesting is usually on a throttle, a hand throttle, it's spring loaded. So if you let go of it, it snaps back to off, to the off position. But if you notice this one, I can turn it. You feel the motor kick in. It doesn't have a lot of spring in it. It actually holds its position. So I can actually max it out. It's kind of like cruise control. Initially, I wasn't too sure about that. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. But I can leave it pretty much maxed out. You know, if I need to use my right hand to adjust my glasses or something like that, and it doesn't slow down, like it just keeps maintaining speed. I think as long as you're aware of that, and I wonder if I just use the brake, if that overrides. I'm just using the left brake. So even though I do have that motor maxed out, it does disengage the motor when you hit the brake. So that is good. If it didn't, that would be a problem. And when I let go of the brake, the motor kicks back in because the throttle is already down. So definitely something to be aware of, but I think you can make it work for you in a positive way. I've been doing a pretty solid 50-50 mix of throttle and pedal, kind of back and forth, just to see what kind of realistic range I can get out of this thing. So obviously I have had it up to mode 5 and I have gone fairly fast. But for the most part, I've been around 15 miles an hour in mode 3. We are still at one block, 37.8 miles. Pretty impressed. Let me see if I can get to 40 miles on this one chart. All right, we have got flashing battery indicator. I still have assist. I'm at 38.7 miles. Kind of curious to see when it will actually cut me off. Let's see if I can ride throttle only. It's definitely slowing down. So it looks like it is reserving power for the speedometer. Although there's clearly some assist going on. It's just very low level. So 39.3. Now I did about half of that whole last 10 miles on throttle only. Kind of mixed it up. Yeah, 39.3 miles on the flashing battery indicator. Yeah, so I would say under most circumstances, with average use, you could easily get 40 miles plus of range out of this particular e-bike. And that's just with the single battery. Of course, you double that with the double battery. And you also get more range if you weigh less than 200 pounds. And you got to make sure your tires are properly inflated as well. I think I do have the tires at the recommended pressure, so I don't think that was a factor. All right, so very impressed with the range test on this bike. Let's go wrap up and talk about some final thoughts. So who's the M20 suited for? Well, I would say for shorter riders for sure. So maybe people who are 5'5" and under, or people who want to really prefer to keep their legs or their feet on the ground when you're stationary and you don't like a high seat. Since this is not adjustable, you really only got 32 inches from ground to the seating surface here. So it is not a tall seat. So if you're a taller rider or somebody who likes the seat higher, this might be a little bit harder on your knees if you intend to pedal a lot. Now, if you intend to only pedal a little bit and mostly rely on throttle, this is still a very suitable option in that particular case. So I do think that the rugged aluminum construction of this bike and the dual suspension, the dual adjustable suspension here in front and back, really do a nice job of taking some of the rough terrain bumps and stuff out of the ride and making the ride more comfortable. And the fact that it's constructed of quality components should make this bike pretty reliable for quite a few years. All right, so hopefully you found something in the video helpful. If you did, please consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. And consider subscribing. I've got a ton of DIY and cool tech product content coming up, in addition to the usual sort of solar power, portable power type content that I typically do on the channel. So stay tuned for all of that. So with that, I do offer my sincere thanks for sticking around and watching this video, and I do hope you'll join me for the next one. Until then, have fun out there.